So 0.33 times 400. And so we get 132. And then if I want to know after 8 hours, I would just multiply by 0.33 again. Alright? Oh, not times 400. She's got 132 milligrams here, so we do times 0.33. So you have 43.56. And then you could keep going, right? But I'm really just doing this table for us to think about what is happening in our formula. So my A sub 0, my starting amount here, what would it be? Yes. It's not half, but her body metabolizes 67%, or that means uses up 67%. So I could do this right here, 400 times 0.67. Like we'd have to subtract if we use it 67. Or the quicker way to think about it here is you had 100% of the medicine. The body used up 67%. So that means 33% was left. So if you do 100 minus 67, it'd give you 33. So if I just take 400 and I multiply it by that 0.33, that will give me the part that's left. That way I can do it in just one step. All right. Okay, so A sub 0, what would it be, Wesley? Oh, another question, go ahead. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I should have. It's number of 4-hour periods, and I really should have 1 and 2 right here. Sorry. Thank you. It should be, yes, it should be 1 and 2. Yeah. You're right. I could make a table where it goes 0, 4, 8, and I should put number of hours if I do that. Yes. I meant for it to be 0, 1, 2, though. Okay. And so, here, we got 400 for our A sub 0. And then our A sub n is going to be 0.33 times whatever was on the line before it, which is our A sub n minus 1. So this would be our recursive formula. Now, they did not ask us to, but we could write an explicit equation for this. So if we wanted to write an explicit equation here, our initial amount, our A sub 0, what we're starting with, it's our 400. It goes here. This is going to be exponential right here. So we'll have 0.33 is our B value, and then it would be to the n power. That would be explicit. Explicit is nice because if I want to know how much medicine's left in her system after 24 hours, right? 24 divided by 4 is going to give me 6. I don't know why I typed that in. So I could do, that'd be 6 4-hour periods. So I could do 400 times 0.33 to the 6th power. So I'd only have like 0.5165 milligrams, so very trace amounts at that point, right? Explicit formulas are really helpful a lot of times. Here's the problem. This is why the top of your notes today says 1.7 notes, advanced recursive formulas. Sometimes recursive formulas don't apply to the, explicit formulas don't apply to the situation. Because if Tanya just has maybe a headache, a quick headache, she takes medicine, the headache goes away, then she's going to take the medicine, she's not going to take any more. But if Tanya has a fever, or Tanya's down with her back, or Tanya has, a recurring problem here that doesn't go away immediately when she takes the ibuprofen, she's going to take the medicine over and over and over again, right? Because when you've got a fever and you feel awful, you go take medicine, you feel a little better, then 4 hours later it runs out and you got to go take more medicine, right? And then 4 hours after that you go take more medicine. You just keep taking it either until your fever, until you're better, or maybe you should go see the doctor if you do that for too long, right? So let's look at example 2. It's the same situation except for Tanya now is sicker. Whatever's wrong with her, she needs to keep taking the medicine. So now we're going to imagine that Tanya needs to continue taking 400 milligrams of ibuprofen every 4 hours in order to manage her pain. So her body is still metabolizing 7% of the medicine every 4 hours. We need to write a recursive formula. That should say that, not that. Right there. Fix that. There we go. That represents the amount of ibuprofen in Tanya's body at the end of each 4-hour period. So let's think about what's happening this time. The table helps me think this through a little bit. So, same thing. This is going to be my N. It's my number of 4-hour periods. So I'm going to have 0, 1, 2, 3. But think that means 0, 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours. These are 8-hour periods. So, not 8, 4-hour periods. And A sub N is the amount of medicine that she has in her body. So we start off, she takes 400 milligrams. So 400 here. Alright, so after 4 hours, her body has metabolized 67%. Right? So we would take 400 and we would multiply it by 0.33, just like we did last time. But what's she going to do at the end of 4 hours? She's taking more, right? So we're going to have the amount remaining plus she's going to take an extra 400 milligrams. So if I figure that, 400 times 0.33 plus 400. Now she's got 532 milligrams. Alright, so now she's got 532 milligrams. Her body's still using up 67% of that medicine. So times, not 0.67. So she's using up 67%, which means 33% remains. So we would multiply this number by 0.33, which means she's going to have 175.56 milligrams in her body. But what's she going to do? She's still taking medicine. The doctor told her to, so she's going to add 400 here. So 575.56. Then we do the same thing again, right? She'd have 575.56. Her body would use up 67%, which means it would still have 33% in its system. Plus, she would take an extra 400 milligrams. So, times 0.33 plus 400. Okay, so that gives me 589.9348. And so she would keep doing this for however long she needs to, right? So what do you notice about the amount of medicine in her system? It's going up, 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 right? So we should be interested here. What's going to happen? Is this going to go up forever? Because this doesn't seem like it's going to be good if she has large amounts of ibuprofen in her system. Like at some point that's going to start affecting body systems, right? So we could just keep doing this by the calculator forever and ever and ever. We cannot write an explicit formula for this. So like with this one over here, if I wanted to know after 24 hours how much was in here, I could just take the explicit formula, plug in the value for 24 hours, and know immediately, right? But we cannot do that in this particular situation. So this is where we need a recursive formula, and we have to use a recursive formula because we can't write an explicit formula for this situation. So a recursive formula, our a sub 0 is 400. That's just the same. That's our starting value, right? So a sub n, what is happening here to our a sub n minus 1? What are we doing to the number in front? We're adding 400, and what else are we doing to it? Multiplying by 0.33. So 0.33 times a sub n minus 1, and then we add 400 to that. All right, so this is our recursive formula. 0.33 times our a sub n minus 1 plus the extra 400 milligrams that she's taken at the end of each time period. Yes?
So yesterday on the board, I was doing this, and would this be right? So whenever you're multiplying by something, that goes before a sub n, and then if you're adding, it goes after a sub n.
Technically, it would still be right if you wrote it like this, a sub n minus 1 times 0.33 plus 400. It would technically still be right if you wrote it that way, but it just, typically we usually see this written out front, because just like if you were saying 2x plus 400, you would write it like that. You wouldn't say x times 2 plus 400, right? So we typically just write that out front. So technically it could be right either way. It just looks a little more professional if you put it up here. Sometimes in math we just want to look like we know what we're doing. So there's some things you can do in math that's technically right. Like if you tell me that the answer to a problem is 16 over 1, and the answer is 16, technically you're right. 16 over 1 is the answer. But if you leave 16 over 1 as your answer, you look like you don't know what you're doing. All right, so sometimes that's the only difference there. So you just look more like you know what you're doing if you put it up front. But it's technically correct either way. All right, so let's open up a spreadsheet. So if you guys will get your computers, and I'm going to show you something. I think it's so cool here. This is so interesting. I love this stuff right here. All right, so just open up, oh wait, no, it's not there. Google Sheets. So like if you're in your email, you can just go over here to Sheets, or you can look for Google Sheets. Just open up a blank Google Sheets. You can do this in Excel also, but I'm going to use Google Sheets because I know everybody has access to that, because even on the Chromebooks you can use this. Excel's pretty much the same thing if you ever use it instead. So I want to make myself a spreadsheet for this, and let me see if I can make my font way bigger so you guys can see it. Or just zoom in. I'm just going to go a little top. Alright. Make this much. Make mine really big so you can see what I'm typing in. Alright, so I have a choice over here on my first column. I need that to be my time. I could make it 0, 1, 2, 3 like I did over here, which I need to do for my recursive formula. But really what I want to know is the number of hours, right? So I'm going to put hours right here, but I want to go up by increments of 4 here. So 0, 4. Now, Addison showed me a cool trick. Oh yeah, that's okay. Let me show you that trick. Okay, so there's a few things you could do. You could type in 0, 4, 8, 12. This is going to take you a while, right? So if you highlight those numbers, it puts this little blue box down here in the corner. All right. If I drag it down, Google is recognizing my pattern here that I'm adding 4 each time, and it's just continuing that pattern. So you don't have to type them all in by hand. You can just drag it down once you've started. Okay, so was everybody able to get that filled in? I just drug it down pretty far. We could go as far as you need to, but I went all the way down to like 89, but probably 50 or 60 would be fine. So what you do is, let me see if I can. All right, so you're going to put a few in, 0, 4, 8. It'll actually work if you just do 0, 4. And you're going to highlight just those numbers. And there's this little blue box down here in the corner. Click on it and drag it down. And it'll fill in the rest of them for you. You can type them in by hand, but this is just so much faster if you do it. And you don't have that, like, maybe you might skip one if you do that. So this is much better. Okay, everybody got that figured out? Okay, so over here, medicine, I'm going to put milligrams here. All right, so we know the first one is 400. I'm just going to type that in. And so we don't want to have to go through and do 400 times 0.33 plus 400 and then do that again for each one of these, right? The point of using the spreadsheet is to make it quicker for us. So I'm going to put a formula in here. So anytime you're doing a formula in a spreadsheet, those of you that have done this before, what have you got to use? Can't remember? Anybody know? All right, if you're trying to put a formula, you got to start with an equal sign. So if you don't put the equal sign, it won't recognize that it's a formula. So start with an equal sign whenever you're doing this in Google Sheets. And so what we want to do is we want to take 0.33 and we want to multiply it by the line above. So to multiply, do Shift 8 and put the little star. Or you can use parentheses? I can't remember. I don't know if you can use parentheses, actually. Let's just do the star. It'll work. So we got 0.33 times. Now, our recursive formula is we multiply by 0.33 and we add 400. The spreadsheet's not going to know what to do if I put a sub n minus 1. That's not the language that it uses. What it needs to know is which cell, which block does it need to look at. So it needs to look at this one right here where I've got this 400. So just click on it. And it's going to show up that that's B2. You can type in B2 if you want, but you don't have to. You can just click on it. It'll be there. And then plus 400. So you got equals 0.33 times B2, or just click on the cell for B2 right there, plus 400. So basically, instead of using a sub n minus 1, we're putting in our recursive formula, but instead of a sub n minus 1, we're just clicking on the cell above, right? Because that's what it means. It means a line before, right? All right, so when you hit enter, it will calculate it for you. Now, mine says suggested autofill, which is what I want to do. I want to copy that formula all the way down, even though, I don't know, it's not looking too good. Yeah, and if I click check, it does that. If yours did not do that, if you highlight the first two, it'll put that block there, and then you can drag it down. No, wait, don't do that. Don't do that. Do not do that. Just highlight the one we put the formula in and drag it down. Do that. Yeah, that'll be better. Uh-oh. So, whenever you have this, click on that cell. Click on the blue box and drag it down. It'll copy it down. Okay, did everybody get it to work? Let's see. Here, yours is not working. Oh no, it's working. That's what it's supposed to do. All right, this is cool. I think this is so cool. So this is what happens. And so this is what would happen in real life with Tanya and her medicine. So if she's taking 400 milligrams every 4 hours to manage her pain. At first, the amount of medicine in her system is increasing, but notice it's increasing like a lot at first and then just a little bit after that. And so what happens over time, so like at 24 hours, she's at 596.76 milligrams. Well, at 48 hours, now she's got 597. And eventually, it's not going up at all, actually, right? It is technically still going up just a teeny tiny amount, but it's so tiny that we can't see the difference. So what's happening is her amount of medicine in her system is evening out here. Whenever you get to calculus, we would say the limit as x approaches infinity approaches 597.014 here. So over time, it evens out. This is what happens with some types of medicine that you take. So sometimes you will go to the doctor. They may give you a specific medicine. I know for sure this happens a lot with like ADHD medicine, but it's lots of kinds of medicines that you might take. The doctor will tell you that you got to wait like a week for it to get into your system. So some medicines are instantaneous. They just fix the problem right away. It's not built up in your system. But there's others, particularly any type of like neurological medicine that's like ADHD, depression, those sort of things. They have to build up in your system, and it keeps a steady amount in your system at all times. Right? So it probably wouldn't be necessarily safe for Tanya to do this indefinitely, because even this level, maybe possibly over time, could cause some damage. But it's not going out of control like she's got overdose levels of ibuprofen in her system, right? So over time, it's evening out to that amount, which is what's going to happen with your medicine. But if we go up here, like if we are Tanya's doctor and she comes in and she's having trouble, let's say this is a different medicine, right? Let's say that her medicine is not working and she needs some more medicine. We could maybe say, okay, take 600 milligrams, which means right here I'm going to change this to 600. And if I take this and drag it down. So 600, now we're evening out at 895. So we might try that, see if that helps. But you also have to know, if you are a doctor, like what are the limits of safety with this. It might not be safe to have 895 milligrams of this in your system at all times. It might start to wear down on systems and stuff. So you could, adjust things here as necessary. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that every doctor you go to has a spreadsheet calculating this stuff. But if you work for Advil and you're putting the warning labels, you better bet they've done some research on this and done something specific, here. Mm-hmm. You could, if you wanted. You could. We could, because that would be the B2 is the dose that you're taking. So that would be a cool thing to do, because if we change that to a B2, so both of these are B2. That would be kind of cool to do, because now, if I copy that down, oh wait, hold on, I messed something up. Maybe I need some parentheses around these two right here.
Because for the numbers below, it changes to B2 to B3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Uh-oh, that's the problem.
So you keep the B2 in the plus, you keep that at B2. I forgot how to do that, though. It might be brackets.
Brackets, let's try it. Let's just try it. Does that work? Nah. Yeah, because we need it to be B2 every time and not to change there. Well, maybe it was good. There's probably a way to do it, but for right now, it's not working. But you could, and if you're good with spreadsheets, you can do stuff like that. Like that's the way you would be wanting to think if you were setting up a spreadsheet. You want to think about, how can I make this so all I got to do to know the answer to my question is just change one number, right? So they're pretty cool. They help us learn things that we otherwise would be typing this, we'd still be typing this in the calculator to figure out what's happening, right? So, let's keep going. Alright, now, Tanya's feeling really bad, and she decides that she should take 800 milligrams of ibuprofen every 4 hours instead. Her body still metabolizes 67% of the drug every 4 hours. So, I want you guys to adjust your spreadsheets. Now, she's starting out, instead of 400, she's taking 800. So, that 0 is going to be 800. Adjust your formula to see what would happen there. Okay, dollar signs. Okay. I'll show them that here in a second. Although yeah, it's like if you want it. Yeah. It thinks I'm trying to do a formula and I'm not doing that. Oh! Let me do it over here just to make sure it's the same. Okay, yeah, that's great. Okay, so your formula here, you should change this to 0. And your formula is going to be, actually, well, it doesn't matter whether I put B2 or B3, but yeah. So you do not have to do the dollar signs. If that's confusing you, do not worry about the dollar signs. It is unnecessary. What is changing here is that instead of adding 400, we're just adding 800. So that recursive formula that we were using, the 0.33 times a sub n minus 1, which we're using B2 for here, plus 400 becomes plus 800. And so you just plug that in, highlight it, drag it down. And so we can see that after, let's see, the question says, what's it say here? 24 hours. After 24 hours, we're at 1,193.521 milligrams. And after a week is 24 times 7, which is 168. Let's see if I even went down that far. Oh, yeah, I did. So a week, we're at 1194.030 milligrams there. Alright, so you do not have to use the dollar sign at all. So if what I'm about to show you confuses you, just block it out of your mind. You don't have to use it. But Kate up here figured something pretty cool out. So what you're doing is you're adding that dosage again, right? Which B2 is the dosage. So you could do 0.33 times B2 plus B2, which is the dosage. But the problem is when you drag this down, like over here, it changes B3, B4, B5, and if you don't put dollar signs, it'll change it each time. But if you put $B, $2, it'll always use B2 whenever you paste it down. So this way, if you use this formula, like if I want to know what happens if she takes 1,000 milligrams, I just have to change that first one to 1,000, and it automatically changes. Whereas if I do that over here, it doesn't do it correctly. So $sign stuff is only if you want to make really cool spreadsheets and you think it's interesting. You don't have to do that for this. $signs make it where whenever you copy something down, it does not change.
It's actually a bit different from that. It depends on whatever you put in front of. So for the B, we know we were doing, you put the $sign in front of the B, and you keep the B the same way.
Oh,
so this way,
that. So if we wanted to change the,
if you put it in front of the 2, say keep the 2 no matter what.
that would make really cool. That could be, yeah, that would be really cool. I'll just ignore us. We're having a nerd conversation here. That would be really cool. I want to make a spreadsheet that requires that just to try it out. But, because you could, if you just put like a B in front of the $sign and the $sign in front of the B and not in front of the 2, it'll keep B. Yeah. Or if you put it just in front of the 2, it would go across. That'd be so cool. I need a spreadsheet that just like needs that. But we don't need that here, so unnecessary to know. Yes?
Are you going to have to figure out how many 4-hour periods are in a week?
So the way I have, alright, quiet for a sec. The way I have this set up is I set this up so it went up by hours, right? So I just need to figure out how many hours are in a week. So you just need to do 24 times 7 to figure out how many hours in a week. So I prefer to set this up where it's just hours and I go up by 4 because it makes it easier to answer the questions. You could make that column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and it means 4-hour periods, but it makes it more confusing when you're trying to answer the problems. Okay, let's try another situation. There are so many cool things that this works for. So, this time, we have a population of fish in a pond, and it decreases each month by 20%. The pond is restocked each month by adding 100 fish. If the initial population of fish is 250, and it's going to ask us some questions. So this is a situation that's very common to have, right? Now, I'm not saying that if you go to Jim's catfish pond, that Jim's got a spreadsheet figuring out how many catfish he needs to add back to his pond every week, right? It's not happening. But if you work for like wildlife biology sort of stuff, if you have a job monitoring populations of things, like in North Carolina, there's an extensive stocking program for lakes and rivers. So you are going to see that there are biologists that work for this, that are monitoring fish populations. They are stocking rivers and lakes with fish from hatcheries. So they would be concerned with this. Jim's catfish pond has probably not got a sheet set up for this. Our situation's a little more Jim's catfish pond because there's a lot of other things that could affect stuff. Like it would be more complex on a bigger scale, but it would still apply here, right? And it gives us a good idea. So, first thing we'll do is write a recursive equation that gives the population of the fish in the pond over time. So, we got A sub 0 is our initial population, and what is that going to be? 250. All right. And so, our recursive formula, A sub n equals... So what happens to our population every month? Decreases by 20%. So if I want to do that, I could take A sub n minus 1, which would be last month's population, right? What would I multiply it by? 0.8. Because 20% are gone, but that means 80% are still there. But if that happened it just dwindled till I barely had any fish left. They don't want that to happen, so they're stocking the fish. So they're going to add 100 extra fish each month. Now, I could go through this with my calculator, do 0.8 times 250 plus 100, then find that, and then do it again. But the spreadsheet's going to make this so much faster. So let's go back over to the spreadsheet. All right, I'm going to add me a new tab here. If you just click the little plus sign here, it'll add a new sheet that's still like technically within the same thing. Or you can start a new sheet, or you can erase the old one, whatever you want to do, because we're just using this to figure out here. So, this time, I want this column right here to be months, and this one to be fish. And so for my months, I just want to go up each month, right? So 0, 1, 2. If I highlight it right here, and everybody follow along, try it on your own. And I drag this down. It'll fill it in so I don't have to type 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You could use the formula if you wanted to. What would our formula do if you wanted to do that? Just equals the one before it plus 1. Right, that'll work too. Okay, so initial number of fish, 250. All right, so for our formula, equals 0.8 times, instead of using a sub n minus 1, I'm just going to click on the cell that's got my 250 in it, and I'm going to put plus 100. Okay, so 0.8 times B2 plus 100. It's not always B2. It depends on where you have your, like if you had more columns, it might be something else. But it's always this one right above it.
Is B2 just an easier way of saying it's the 250?
Right. It's just an easier way of saying it's 250. And what it does, instead of it always being 250, it's the cell above. Okay. Right? So it's like saying, take the number you had in the line before and use it. All right, and then it's suggest I autofill. I'm just going to click the check mark. Or if you don't autofill, you can just click on that formula box and pull the box down, and it'll fill in for you. Okay, questions on setting up the spreadsheet?
What is fish population in the long run?
Okay, so for 1 year, what would we be looking at? 12. And at 12, we're at 480. We're going to just round this to 483 since we're talking about fish here. In the long run, just means, because for most of the, if I'm asking this question, then it means it's going to balance out at something. So what do we get? What are we getting close to? We're getting close to 500, so it's going to balance out at 500 if we keep this program and nothing else changes. Yes. Let me see what you got. Whenever you fill it down, just click on the one that says 300. I think you highlighted the 250 and the 300. Just click on the 300. Because you just wanted to do the formula. Yeah, so delete that out. And then just click on the 300 and just drag it down. And that should be it. There you go. Yeah. Who else is having trouble?
It's in the NCS system. Yeah. Yeah.
Alright, anybody else having troubles on theirs? Okay? Alright. Let's look at our next situation. Oh, okay. Now this is just like we're back to what I call sometimes a naked problem here. This is just like something a math teacher came up with to test your brain. No application here. All right, so you will see some problems like this. Given the recursive formula, a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 plus 3n minus 1. If the first term is 2, find the next 4 terms in this. Actually, I'm gonna say next 3 terms in the sequence. I'm gonna do this by hand because, well, we don't have a final exam for this. Well, we have a teacher-made final exam for this class. We do not have a state final exam for this class. So I'm going to do this by hand because on state testing, or if this were to show up on the ACT, you can't use Google Sheets. But you could use the Google Sheet to answer this if you're just feeling fancy and want to try. But I'm going to do this one by hand, okay? Because you need to know how to do it by hand in case it shows up somewhere where you can't use Google Sheets. So, when I see first term is 2, if it says first term, just let that be a sub 1 equals 2. In my mind, there's some debate over whether that should be a sub 1 or a sub 0. I'm just going to tell you right now, if I say first term, let it be a sub 1. I think I usually try to say a sub 1 equals a value instead of this, but some textbooks and problems that you may see may do it this way. So we're going to assume a sub 1 here. So I know a sub 1 is 2. I want to find a sub 2. I'll find the next term. So what you're going to do, I'm going to do this sort of overkill here. You don't necessarily have to show all of these steps whenever you're doing this problem. That means I'm going to take everywhere there is an n, I'm going to replace it with a 2. So a sub 2 minus 1 plus 3 times 2 minus 1. So I'm just taking my recursive formula. Everywhere there's an n, I'm putting a 2. Okay? Which is 2 minus 1 gives me 1. I'm going to go ahead and do this plus 6 minus 1. What is a sub 1? They told us it was 2, so I can plug that in right here. So I got 2 plus 6 minus 1, and 2 plus 6 is 8, minus 1 is 7. So a sub 2 equals 7. Alright, so if I want to do this again to find the next term, if I'm looking for a sub 3, sorry if I start shortcutting a little bit here. When I see a sub n minus 1, what is that? If I'm plugging in 3. It's a sub 3 minus 1, which is a sub 2. It just means the term before, right? So a sub 2, what was a sub 2? It was 7. So I'm going to plug in my 7 right here. Goes right here. Plus 3 times n. I'm replacing n. This little number right here, this is your n, right? That 3 is your n. So you're replacing it with 3 this time. Minus 1. Okay, up here I used 2 because I was finding a sub 2. The n value was 2. This was n equals 2. Right here, this is n equals 3. So I'm putting a 3 right here. Alright, so then we're just simplifying 7 plus 9 minus 1, which is 16 minus 1, so I get 15. So my a sub 3 is 15. And I need to find one more term. So I'm looking for a sub 4, which for my formula, I have a sub n minus 1, which means just the one that comes before it, which is a sub 3, which was 15. Oh. Come on. Going crazy. 15. Ugh. Plus 3 times n. What's my n here? 4. It's whatever the subscript I have there. Minus 1. So I got 15 plus 12 minus 1. So 27 minus 1, which is 26. So a sub 4 is 26. So the next 3 terms would be 7, 15, and 26. Okay, questions? Alright, we are running out of time. I would like to do the last one, but we don't have time to do it yet. So, we are not going to do this whole sheet for homework because I would like for us to have a little more practice in class before I take the loop on this whole thing. So, I just want you guys to do the front page. Most of these first ones are really more like the stuff you guys were doing yesterday, where it gives you the explicit and recursive formula. So it's going to give you a little more practice with that. That bottom question, the bottom 2 questions are like what we were just doing. The other stuff we're going to wait for a little more practice on. So just do the front page of this worksheet. We will work on it tomorrow, which is fine because I've got time built into our schedule. I think so. I think I put it up there.
Yes, I believe. What are you doing?
We already had
I'm not going to. Oh, you put this in the calculation sheet and made it correct.
I have not done it myself, but I was really wanting to. Did you? Was that school math and science?
Yeah, it was because they did recalculation there.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of that school math and science stuff, like they do crazy math.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like Jack had like 3-dimensional spherical coordinates, and he was asking me if I had done those before.
It sounds like fun.
And they look slightly familiar, so I was looking back at the Calc 3.
Was it on that logo?
Huh?
There's a software on that logo, and you have those specific points, and you had to create like marble tracks and stuff in 3D space.
So they throw a lot of crazy math in on those.
Yeah, we did a lot with
Yeah. Pretty cool.
No.
And very